consider technology separate from nature. What we create is what we create. It's unnatural, it's artificial. We think of the wilderness as something outside of us, something separate from us, and we think of ourselves as different from every other life form on this planet. It almost seems like these words, artificial and natural, are at opposite ends of an invisible spectrum, a chasm between us and everything else.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God.
Rather than the beginning of all of existence, that kind of sounds to me like the beginning of the tale, the story. And perhaps that's where we do differ from all other life on this planet as we know it. We are creatures of the story. Our brains are made for abstraction because through the word, through our ability to communicate with one another, to share complex ideas and build on those throughout time, we're able to dissolve some of the temporal barriers.
And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.
I think I might have spotted some of that invisible chasm. You see, because even though we have the ability to tell stories to transcend beyond this moment, we're still creatures of this earth. The danger for us lies in believing that we are separate from this world, that there is another world, a better world waiting for us, and that everything that is on this earth is just here for whatever takes our will at the time. It's all just stuff for us. Starting off, and I'm already on a tangent. I can't help myself. Hello, my name's Nick, and this is my artificial wilderness where I want to scratch at the technicolor walls of abstraction to help them reveal their true, dull selves. Because I don't see our technology as something separate from us, nor us as something separate from the wider natural world. See, it's not technology that creates these chasms. It's our collective attitude toward our place and our power in this world. And it's our tendency to look at the flow of information as a potential revenue source, as long as we can gatekeep some from those who want it and charge them a fee. Our tendency to use trickery, obfuscation, and all sorts of near magical techniques to sway people toward a decision that we would like them to make. I just want to step back for a moment. Does it really matter if reality is an illusion? If all that we see around us is a simulation or some kind of creation by the deities to test us on whether or not we are a good soul or a bad soul, so we can go to the good place or bad place? Do these questions matter at all if we have no way of discerning whether or not it is true or false? Whether or not we are, in fact, in a simulation? The big questions about the nature of reality can tend to gloss over all the menial stuff about everyday life. Like, you know, the everyday battle that you have to struggle through to find your will amongst everybody else's, amongst all the influencers in the world, against all those who are seeking to change your mind to benefit them in some way or another. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So those who control the flow of information, those who control the word, the communication, may do as gods do. And so what I want to talk to you today about is a little altercation that I had with one of these controllers of information flow, and I guess some of the things that concern me about this altercation. Let's go.
Pardon the ramble, it's kind of what I do, hoping that I'll be able to connect all these dots together. Sometimes I get lost with my own dot connections, but that's why I need one of those dot walls. I need a dot wall. I will get a dot wall. This video is about something that I guess seems benign, and maybe you don't really care, but I'm sick of explaining it to everybody, so I'm making a video about it. So Friday the 26th of June, I was doing some administrative work for my work on Facebook in this business part of Facebook, just updating some business account details and whatnot. Anyway, it was about 9 p.m. and I got logged off Facebook for no clear reason. And then when I went to log back in, I received this message. I mean, technically I didn't get that message till about 5 minutes later. The first message was pretty similar, but it had a little box below it that allowed me to apparently have the decision reviewed. When you pressed the button, there was nowhere that you could actually type what you thought had happened or what was going on. There was no interactive component. It was literally just a button, review my decision. You press it and then something happens and I guess they're reviewing the decision. So I pressed the button and then it told me that due to coronavirus there may be a delay in blah blah blah, and then like 5 minutes later I received this message. So I've been on Facebook since about 2006 when it looked a bit like this. At the time, I was just about to turn 20. Social media was a relatively new thing. MySpace was what we all had at the end of high school, and we didn't even have social media for most of high school. It was the golden age of music pirating, MSN Messenger, niche online forums, and even ADSL broadband was only just starting to fire up, so we were still used to this sound. But now Facebook has become one of a handful of mega digital platforms. Facebook hosts 2.6 billion users, which is around 1/3 of every single human on this planet. There have been a series of scandals about what Facebook does with your data, but the fact is the influence of Facebook's networks is shaping the way that we form our consensus reality in the 21st century. So it's just after 9 p.m. on Friday the 26th of June, and I'm feeling pretty stressed. I'd many times thought about deleting my Facebook account, as I'm sure many of you have also done, especially around the time of some of those big scandals, like in 2016 when I first heard about the company Cambridge Analytica, which was harvesting people's publicly available data and then forming these things called psychographic profiles to make ultra-targeted advertising so that they could find the message that would most sort of massage your will into their dollar signs, or in some cases, votes. That was the same year that Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, and it turned out that his election campaign had been using Cambridge Analytica. The night of his inauguration, some friends and I decided to stay up late and watch it for whatever reason. I guess Donald Trump was still a bit of a novelty back then. A kind of insane one, but I suppose a novelty. And I kept noticing him making this silly hand signal, so I took a picture of myself doing it, rather innocently at the time, and it wasn't until later that I found out that some groups were trying to use the, what I thought was the OK symbol, as a white power symbol. And that kind of symbolism was especially popular among these sort of fringe internet groups, communities, I suppose you'd call them, which kind of took this really intense interpretation of what free speech is. I guess their idea of free speech was, I'll do what I want and fuck you. I think that was sort of the gist of the message. So all the internet platforms have been trying to deal with these kind of subversive communication methodologies in a variety of different ways. Facebook developed their community standards, and these community standards are kind of Facebook's 10 commandments, I suppose. And from what I've heard from people speaking on podcasts and in articles that I've read, Facebook like to be very, very black and white about it. They want rules for 2.6 billion people that can be contained in just a couple of pages and will contain every decision, black and white. That approach has been riddled with scandals over the years as well. There's been inconsistent policing. The rules are kind of confusing because guess what? It's really hard to write very short rules that rule everybody, 2.6 billion people, and you're going to get it right in every scenario. And the whole thing is incredibly opaque and very secretive as to how it actually operates. And then you've also got your bad actors, things like spam bots or propaganda houses that are putting out information that is meant to specifically engage people and then get them to make certain decisions or hold certain beliefs or ideals at the end of it. But at the end of all of the sort of weighing up of the pros and cons of Facebook, I'd sort of come to the realization that Facebook was incredibly useful. I had some big reach for my radio show. I had about 4,000 people, and I was a moderator of various pages. So Facebook was very useful, very addictive, but I hadn't reached that point where I was like, no, the costs outweigh the benefits. So I kept Facebook. Pretty much everyone's on Facebook. It's where almost everyone reaches each other these days. So that's why I'm feeling pretty stressed when I'm seeing this message. And the other thing is, there was this kind of weird guilt feeling that I had when I'm looking at this message, because I started to go like, oh my God, what have I done? Is there something that I've done in the past 15 years of my Facebook presence that has stepped afoul of the community guidelines? Perhaps there's little bots, little algorithms checking through all of my private messages, all of my previous posts, events, groups, pages, everything, and just looking for the one little thing that they can go, and you're gone. And I've never even received like a Facebook ban. I've never even been in Facebook jail. The most I've received was a warning message when I've been copy-pasting event information into messages to a whole bunch of people, and they're like, no, don't do that, it's spamming. Like, no, it's giving people the invitation over and over, but sure. And it was also one of the first times that I'd explored this particular part of Facebook. From what I understand, it's fairly new, only the past couple of years, and I get a bit confused with Facebook's release of what the user actually sees, because from my understanding, a lot of people see different things at different times as Facebook sort of beta tests people without them actually knowing that they're being beta tested. I was like, oh my gosh, have I pressed something wrong in there? Because it was there was credit card information. It was a secure part of the website, and I was trying to change accounts around, so maybe I'd tripped some like invisible wire. I don't know. So anyway, I'm starting to get quite imaginative with how a Facebook algorithm might have caught me. Because that's what happens when you have opaque rules and you actually don't know what's going on and there is nobody to talk to. Let me rewind for a second, because I don't think I've been quite clear in my timeline so far. So before I got that message saying that my account had been suspended, I had to actually go and reset my password, which I thought was pretty weird because I hadn't requested that. And that meant I had to log into an email address, and this email address I used to use a long time ago, but I sort of switched over to a Gmail address over the past sort of 5 or 10 years. And Facebook is one of the only sort of main accounts that I was using this email address on. I didn't really think to change it to my Gmail, and in fact I think I might have tried to change it in the past and run into some, no, you're not allowed to do that by Facebook, but that might be something I made up in my head just now. I started to get this tingly feeling of, oh my gosh, as I typed in my password for that email address, and that password is a password I've been using for about 15 years, which I am no longer using, and a password that I had used on a number of websites, including some of these vaguely insecure websites, including some of these websites that might have been hacked at certain times and had all of their data stolen, including password and login information. So when I logged into that email, I noticed that there was some unusual activity in my inbox. There had been several attempts made to reset my Facebook password, and there were emails that had been read that I certainly had not read because I don't log into that email address often at all. Then I also noticed that there were emails from EA Games and from Blizzard, also with password request things. Are you starting to get an idea of what's going on here? If you've ever been hacked or you've ever had something stolen from you or your house or car was been broken into, you know that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach as you start to realize just what's happened. So that set me off on a whirlwind. I spent the next 10 hours or something just changing passwords, going to every website that I could think of that I had used the login details and passwords for, and just getting a book out and just writing strings of characters and numbers and just making random passwords everywhere. So it looked like I'd been hacked. And whatever that hacker had done when they logged into my Facebook had been so severe that Facebook just gives me this. So I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. I think that somebody hacked my account, somebody logged in, and somebody did something to get my account thrown off Facebook. The problem is, Facebook don't tell you what you've actually done wrong. They want you to get into the naughty corner. They're not going to tell you what you've done wrong. They're going to give you the community guidelines and say, you go and have a read of those. You know what you did. What the fuck, Facebook? So I did a bit of researching, Googling, Twittering, going around some different forums, and I found a few other people in a similar situation to me. But I didn't find many people, and this is sort of the weird thing. There's literally nowhere you can go to talk to Facebook. I found a couple of email addresses that apparently, according to some other forums that I read, and these are posts from like several years ago, those email addresses that I found for Facebook I just never looked at whatsoever. Facebook directs you to go to Facebook Facebook to their help center, which you cannot access if you cannot log into Facebook, and that's where they'll do all your answering. So not very good if you've been hacked. There's the kind of what feels like going round and round and round in a mad loop of trying to report that your account has been hacked, but it doesn't sort of go anywhere. There's a lot of just brick walls. There's a lot of dead ends. There's a lot of circles, recursive circles that lead nowhere. I feel like it's purposefully designed this way. I think this is part of what Facebook is doing. They want their algorithm to be the be-all and end-all. They don't want to have to hire people to have to interpret complex human situations. They want black and white rules that clearly define who is and is not allowed on Facebook, and then they want that computer to make that decision and for that decision to be final. And I've got a problem with that, and I hope that you have a problem with that too. Because it's not just Facebook that's doing this. There are a lot of companies now that are trying to build algorithms that will be the be-all and end-all of their sort of customer interface. They want to be able to conduct business without having to conduct themselves in front of any humans. They want to be able to set up something automatic, go home, watch the dollars come into their account, and not have to worry about all the messy human stuff that goes on. I'll just say again, 2.6 billion people are on Facebook. 1/3 of the world are on Facebook. Our societies, our communities, all of humanity is built on the way that we communicate with one another. The first time that we're able to write things down, that we're able to tell when the seasons are, we're able to do farming, we set up telegraph poles, and we're able to send electric pulses that can then be interpreted into the words that they represent. All of these steps change everything about the way that we organise our society. They change the logistics of our supply chains. They change the way that our politics works. They change the way that we understand ourselves, our identity in the cultures around us. And like I said before, social media has not been around very long. All of my adult life, but it wasn't there for me as a child. And platforms like Facebook have grown exponentially in that time, have grown to be some of the most powerful companies in the world. So what they do and how they treat the people that are on their platforms, we should be taking notice of, because those things will have flow-on effects for all sorts of things, including many things that I suspect would be considered unintended consequences by Facebook. We're also reaching a time now of not just automation, but smart automation. The combination of things we've learned over the past 10 years, plus the improvements in technology and the growth of AI in our computing sector, all of these things are going to come together, and people are going to find out ways to use them in ways that benefit them, because that's what we do. The advertisers are going to figure out how to advertise better, how to reach you better and sell their product better. The politicians are going to figure out how to make you vote for them better. That's what the game's about in the end. It's sort of not really about informing you to the best of their ability, because some of that information might lead you away from the decision that they want you to make. I'm not saying everybody's like this. There are plenty of honest actors out there too, but this is sort of the money that runs the world, that keeps things spinning. The ones that make the most amount of money are the ones that figure out how to capture all of those factors and then extract the value from it. It's not so much the sales aspect per se that bothers me, it's the ability to be dishonest on never before seen scales. It's the ability to trick people, to surpass people's rationality, and to emotionally engage people so that they sort of don't even really know that you're trying to get them to do this, because you've got something going on over here and over here and over here that creates the emotional sort of dominoes that lead to that. It really is 21st century wizardry. I did try to get back on Facebook, by the way. I had made a backup account about a year ago that I didn't really touch. I had made a backup account about a year ago that I didn't really touch. I made it because I thought, if I want to get off Facebook, I need to be able to admin all these pages. So I tried to log into that, and that too had been banned because it is against Facebook's community guidelines to make multiple accounts. I did read through Facebook's community standards, and there's nothing too surprising in there. Don't post mutilated bodies. Don't post sexual bodies. Don't post racist nonsense. Don't post fake things. Don't defame people. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's the sort of stuff that you'd expect. So I didn't think that I was breaking any of those rules. and I'm not sure I'll ever know really exactly why my Facebook was deleted. I don't think I'm ever going to get an answer. I'm going to put this video out there. Now you know what I don't know, and hopefully you're also just a little bit concerned about the direction of some of these digital platforms and the amount of power that they wield as we move forth into the 2020s in this strange new time. My name's Nick, and this is my artificial wilderness.